Okay, hello everyone. How's it going? This is Azren, the language nerd here. This is now take two. I was recording this a second ago, but I had to restart the recording. And so here we are. This is an episode of Azren's Journal. This is a segment on my YouTube channel where I share various language learning pieces of advice and, of course, give you an insight into my personal language learning journey. Now, this time around, I'm going to be recording a podcast episode at the same time as recording this. So let me get the podcast recording started, and then we will get started with this guy here. So, podcast recording. Here we go. Let's record the intro. Hello, hello, everybody, podcast people. I hope you're having a nice night, as it is nighttime right now as I'm recording this. Podcast people, this is actually a double stream, meaning I've got this podcast recording going on, but I'm also on YouTube at the moment live. And so, podcast people say hello to YouTube people. YouTube people say hello to the podcast people. Now, for the YouTube people, I must say I know it's really dark and a little bit blurry even on my camera. But hey, listen, everyone's sleeping in the house. It's quarter to two at night, and so here I am in the basement. I'm sitting in this kind of on the ground here, and the lighting's not the best, but hey, hopefully you can hear me okay. You can still see me reasonably well. And let's get rolling. Now, I want to kick things off today by telling you about the following. You may or may not know this. So, a lot of my work experience has been with teaching. So, when I was a teenager, I used to work part time, basically 4 days a week after school, after university, and actually possibly in high school too, now that I'm thinking back to it, but it's 4 days a week, couple hours each day, and I would do some soccer coaching, and I would work with kids, a variety of ages, and we do soccer coaching with these kids. So that was one job I had. I ran a window cleaning franchise as well, and a big part of that job was training and coaching. Arguably, it was actually the biggest part of that job, whether you were on the receiving end of the training and coaching or on the giving end. Really, really big part of that job. And nowadays, obviously, I run the Calgary Language Nerds. And this is where my team and I were teaching languages to people of all ages, various levels of experience, online, in person, in groups, one on one, in every sort of situation you can imagine. And actually, here's a little known fact. You may not even know this, but even before being a teenager, when I was 12 years old, starting at the age of 12, I had a job as well, which I did for roughly 6 years that had a teaching element to it. I was a soccer referee. Now, when you hear that, you might think to yourself, well, being a soccer referee, what the heck does that have to do with teaching? What's the connection? Well, here's the thing, when you're a soccer referee, you're managing behavior because you're calling the game, you're making sure people follow the rules, you're blowing the whistle, you're making sure that people play fair, you're giving out penalties when you have to give penalties, but you have to manage people's behavior. When someone's fouling someone a lot, you have to go talk to the person and figure out why they're doing it, what's going on, and get them to correct that behavior. And in a way, while it's not directly teaching, you're not teaching someone a new skill per se, that behavior correction, understanding behavior, why someone's behaving a certain way, how do you modify that behavior? That is, while it's not a teaching skill, I'm going to say it's a coaching skill. It's a performance skill. It's helping people to change behavior to get a better result, whether it be a better result for the game to run smoothly, whether it be there's various reasons why you'd want a change of behavior. And I think teaching in many ways is a big element of it. It's not just transferring your knowledge from your brain to someone else's. It's about understanding human behavior and changing that human behavior for it to be conducive for the individual. I hope that's making sense. Now, you might be thinking, well, where the heck is all this coming from? What's the point of everything you're saying here, Azren? Well, the point of what I'm saying is the following. The point is that when it comes to learning languages, it's really important to understand how human nature works. I think that's really important. And when it comes to being a good teacher, a good coach, heck, a good soccer referee in many ways as well, understanding human behavior is crucial because you have to change human behavior in order to get the desired results. Let me say that again. You have to change human behavior in order to get desired results. Let's make a direct connection to language learning. Listen, you might not be studying or practicing, even though in your mind you're like, I should be doing this. Well, you have to understand, well, what the heck on a psychological level, what the heck is going on? What's going on that's stopping me from putting in the time that I feel that I should be putting in to this language? You've got to dissect that and understand how to change that behavior. Now, that's understanding and really getting good at changing behavior is not something we can fix in a 12-minute podcast episode or 12-minute YouTube video or anything like that. That's just something we can't do in that short of a time period. But hopefully, what I can do today is I can share a couple of small pieces of advice, plant a couple of seeds in your mind, and hopefully over time those grow. And hopefully that's helpful for the people watching slash listening today. Now, um, here's one of the big pieces of advice that I would like to share. Incremental progress is huge. Incremental progress is huge. This means that incremental progress is, I'm going to say, perhaps underrated. Maybe that's the right word. I think that maybe undervalued might be the right word. When people are making small but steady steps forward, I don't think they recognize how powerful that is. I had a conversation with one of my students the other day. In fact, today, not even the other day, as actually was today. I had a conversation with one of my students, one of my longer term students. This person is not the person I've taught for the longest. I have taught people for longer than this one individual, but I've taught this person for some time now, a number of years. And this student shared with me that, wow, after this number of years of taking lessons, I thought I would be a pro. I thought I would be an expert in this target language. And I was like, really? It's been just under 3 years for this person. And I was like, did you really think so after just under 3 years? And this person said, yeah, I thought so. And this person has made a lot of progress. Incremental, slow but steady. Tuck, 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 slow but steady, one brick at a time. And they're far better today than they were 3 years ago, or well, a little bit less than 3 years ago. Far better, a lot better. And that just came from incremental progress. But it reminded me today, talking to the student, that this person does not necessarily view incremental progress the same way that I do. I think incremental progress is huge because getting 4% better, per day, per week, per month, whatever it is, pick your interval, it adds up. And I believe that 3 years is just not a long time when we have, listen, it is a long time because it's a long time and it's not. It's a long time because it feels like a long time, day by day by day by day for 3 years. And I understand that it does feel like a long time. But in the big picture, it's not really a long time because we live such a long time. And 3 years is just a blip in the big picture. It's a blip. It's a small little blip in the big picture. And so when we look at something like someone making incremental progress for 3 years and making serious progress, it's worth something because you're going to be alive for another 80 years or 70 years or 50 years or 90 years, depends on how old you are, of course. So it matters. The other thing is that I'm going to make a case today to say that making significant progress, huge progress in a short period of time, I'm going to say that that is, in most cases, I would like to say that I don't know if that's very realistic. And I don't think it actually happens. I think humans do improve incrementally. We can build up momentum. So if we've made lots and lots of incremental progress over time, you can accrue momentum and almost like pushing a snowball down a hill. The snowball is really small, but over time it gets bigger, faster, and you can accrue and build on that momentum. That is possible. And so maybe initially it's very small changes, but over time they get bigger. That sounds pretty reasonable to me as I'm thinking it through in my mind. I think so. I think that sounds pretty reasonable. And but incremental progress is huge. I've taught a lot of kids and teenagers, and one of the things that I see with kids, especially often with boys, to be honest, is they hate printing. A lot of them don't like printing, and it affects them severely in classes. There's one person in particular. Actually, there's a couple of people in particular I can think of that they were not learning in classes with me due to the fact that they hate printing so much. Because I might say, hey, we're going to write these notes, and they can't do it, and they completely disengage from the class. In extreme cases, they get attitude, they get angry, they get frustrated, they feel dumb, they get angry, they get tired, they get all the negative emotions come out. And one of the things I've told people like this is, listen, okay, you suck at printing, fine. Can you write can you, okay, you have class today. Today, let's focus on writing 2 letters as beautifully as you can, and the rest can be whatever you can do. I'm not gonna even look at them. Show me your 2 letters. All right, you did 2 letters. Because here's the thing, before this individual, well, not this individual, these individuals in general, when you have these kinds of kids, right, they're doing 0 letters. They're doing 0. So the fact that, and they've been doing 0 for possibly years, depending on how old they are. If they're in the 8th grade, you listen, it's been 8 years of schooling that they've been terrible at printing. They've had 8 years of actual pain. So the fact that you can get them to write 2 letters, that means it's properly, that means they've had 0, well, they've been writing 0 letters properly for 8 years, and now you got them to write 2. That's a huge, that you've actually gone from 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0 for 8 years, and now they've done 2. They've done 2. Because see, that's the thing we don't understand. Sometimes people feel that incremental progress is not, what's the word? It's not worth celebrating. But I think it is worth celebrating, because before that incremental progress, you're probably doing 0. You were on track to do 0, or possibly even regress, or regress, is that right, the right word? Perhaps even go backwards. Maybe you were on the path to go backwards, maybe not even 0. And so the fact that you can move 1% forward is huge, because if you didn't move 1% forward, you were likely going to move 10% backwards. So you've actually made 11% progress, because you were on the verge of going 11% backwards. I think about that, my student I told you about, who made that comment to me that, oh, I thought I would be an expert in the language by now, and I'm not. I've just made a lot of progress, but I'm not an expert. Well, what was the alternative? Let's think of the alternative. The alternative was, this person did know French and would be worse in French now than they were 2.75 years ago. They would speak no French. So when you play out the 2 alternatives, right now you've made a 200% improvement, because that's probably 2 to 300% improvement is probably right for this student in 3 years, maybe more than that. That's a huge improvement. Whereas if you hadn't done anything, well, you would have made, I don't know, negative 80% improvement. So you've made a 380% improvement by making incremental progress. So I think that people who think they should make more progress, or they would like to have made more, or they don't value the incremental progress, don't realize that if they hadn't made incremental progress, if they hadn't made it, they would have actually gone backwards 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100%. Most likely. They would have gone backwards so much. You see, it's easy to go backwards in every element of our life. It's really easy to get really fat. Just eat all the cookies you want, never exercise, eat chips and hot dogs and pizza, and watch what happens after 3 months, right? But it's harder to get back into shape. That's always a little bit harder. So it's so easy to slide backwards, and it's so hard to move forward, that when you move forward by 5%, understand that if you hadn't moved forward by 5%, you would have dropped back by 55%. So you've actually moved forward 5%, but really you've moved forward something like 60%, because, or rather, you've moved forward 5, and you've avoided a backslide of 55. That's the big thing I always tell people. I always try to help people understand that. That's why it's so powerful, because you've avoided this backslide. If the podcast people, you guys know, on the past week or so, I've been on this kick of I've been talking a lot about how doing the little things on a day-to-day basis are so important. So I talk about literally getting out of bed in the morning is one of the most important things you can do, because imagine how quickly your life would fall apart if for 2 days you didn't get out of bed. Like, your life would fall apart rapidly. And yet we get out of bed without a second thought, even realizing how important it was that we get out of bed. Watch what happens if you don't brush your teeth for 2 weeks. It's going to ruin your life. So every minute thing we do is so meaningful and powerful and impactful because if you don't do each little meaningful thing, or I'm sorry, each little thing that you do every day, all the 197 things we each do every day, maybe it's more than that. Each little thing we do, if we didn't do it, life slides backwards 100% within in a very, very short period of time. So just by keeping things stagnant or 1% better, 2% better is huge. It's so powerful because if you didn't do that, you would have slid back like crazy. Why don't we realize that? Why don't people realize? I mean, I guess I didn't. I'm not saying that. What am I saying? It sounds so simple, but even me, I just realized it like a few weeks ago. It really hit me a few weeks ago that right, 4% progress in a positive direction is massive because if it didn't happen, it would have everything would have fallen apart very quickly. And it is rare for people to make it's well, maybe I'm wrong on this. My intuition says my top of mind thought. Maybe I'm wrong on this, but I'm pretty sure I'm right. That I think it's rare for people to make while it's let me say this again. While it's not rare and it's not that hard to fall backwards 100% within even a short window like 2 months, I think it's perhaps not possible, perhaps even not possible to make that kind of progress in a 2-month window. So in other words, in 2 months you can fall backwards 100%, but in 2 months perhaps it's not possible to move forward 100%. Even though we want to, it's just not possible. It's way too hard. And so as a result, why the hell do we not just aim for let's just move forward by 4% in 2 months because the alternative of not moving forward 4% was moving backwards 100%. That was your alternative. You had two options. Forward 4% or backwards 200%. And forward 4% is a hell of a lot better than backwards 200%. And so I view it like, okay, if you move forward by 4%, you've actually moved forward by 204%. Because if you didn't, you would have moved backwards by 200%. Catch my drift? So yeah, the little progress is so key. And I think it all to wrap this all with a nice bow. I talked about how 3 years and in the right at the beginning of this video slash podcast, I said that 3 years is a long time, but it's not a long time. Well, the reason that incremental progress I've never realized this. The reason that incremental progress is so powerful is because our life expectancy is a lot longer than it used to be. Huh. I've never realized that till right now. The reason that incremental progress is actually practical now, wow, I've never thought of it that way. The reason incremental progress is so practical now is because we live a heck of a lot longer than we did even 100 years ago. You know, I don't know the statistics, but what was it in what was the life expectancy in the year 1900? That is 121 almost 122 years ago. What is that? That's like a grandma and a half? That's like a what, if my grandparents are like 70, 80, depends on which grandpa you're looking at. That's like not even a grandpa and a half ago. Not even. It's a grandpa and a quarter ago. It's a grandparent and a quarter ago. People lived until what was it? I'm gonna Google it now. Life expect I'm curious now. In let's see, what was it in 1900? When did people live until? So just a quick little Google search. Apparently in the year 1900, the average Canadian life expectancy was 50 years old. Now, what is it now? Let's see. Now in Canada, the average life expectancy apparently is 82.66 years old. So one grandpa and a quarter ago, people died at 50. So incremental progress. And if we go, even before that, they probably died at the age of 39, things like that. So that's probably why, if I had to make a hypothesis, an educated guess, that's probably why genetically we feel like this is really deep. I'm enjoying this. This is probably why genetically we feel like we have to make these big mounds and leaps forward because not that long ago we died at the age of 40, 50. People died. So we didn't have that much time to make incremental leaps forward. We had to grow up really quick. We had to have families, we had to figure stuff out. We had to move quickly. And so that's still in our genes. But listen, now that we live till and in Canada 83 years old, we have double, well, not quite double, but what is that? 50 to 83, what is that? Regardless, roughly double the time. So now incremental progress is very practical because we're gonna live so much longer, right? Does that make sense? Um, yeah, that's why it matters because 'cause we're gonna be alive a long, long, long time. Now, if we all died at 38, you know, we'd all have to figure stuff out real quick. And in fact, maybe we never really figure things out, but we're just less perfectionist. We're just less of a perfectionist. We go, well, we're doing what we can, and we're just doing what we can, right? So, anyway, let's wrap this up here. YouTube, thanks for watching. Podcast people, thanks for listening. And I hope this planted some different seeds in your brain. I enjoyed this today. That was fun. I didn't know that this is exactly the direction I'd end up going in, but looks like we did. Have a great rest of your night, and we'll chat soon. Bye bye. See you.